Welcome to my review of The Boys Season 2, Episode 7, now in my London set. And as always, these reviews have spoilers for the previous episode, so make sure you watch the best episode of the series, Episode 6, before this one. But without any further ado, let's talk about it, mates. So in this episode, all of the boys have a very important part to play as they're getting ready to put Vought and Compound V itself on hearing in front of Congress. And I want to start off by saying this. After the constant exhilarating thrill ride that was episode 6, this episode starts kind of slow. It doesn't start right away after episode 6 where all the tension was left up in the air. And I thought we were just going to pick up back on it because this season has been speeding up constantly, full throttle, pedal to the metal. The beginning of this one, I'd say the first 15 to 20 minutes are slower. They feel more methodical. They feel like very much quite literally the boys are getting ready for something. And this episode gives us a lot of treats. Unfortunately, Amazon has me embargoed for a lot of the things that happen in this episode, so I cannot disclose them. But the pairings in this episode I really love. Frenchie and Kimiko. The sweetest part of ever seeing this show. It's always for me the moment of relief. Outside of all the tension. They're finally getting together and hanging out and getting along because they haven't for a while. So I find it very, very satisfying that they're finally are being friends, and it feels right for these two. Mother's Milk and Colonel Mallory also team up to go and have a talk with Jonah Vogelbaum, which doesn't go quite right, but then Butcher, on his own, the lone wolf, gets there, and he kind of does some very good convincing in his own very butchery way. And after seeing a very well-known actor showing up in this episode that I did not expect, and seeing a certain conversation that he had with his relative Butcher in this episode, I'm like, no wonder Butcher is so fucking cynical. He is so against the world. He so much portrays this picture of hatred and disgust and distrust towards everything and everyone. Look at what has happened to this dude. And it was incredibly enlightening when it comes to Billy Butcher, who has been my favorite character in the show, and with this scene, it helps even more that he is that. The most surprising team-up to me was the man who came back to the show last week, Lamplighter, and Huey. I love every single scene with these two. It went nowhere that I was kind of predicting, and I love it for it. These two made it very dynamic, very entertaining, and it also shed some light on Lamplighter, because I like that last week's episode gave him a new layer. Yes, this guy is not good, but there's good in him. This episode, it doesn't retract that, but it shows that there's yet another layer where this guy, yeah, this guy is... douche feels too light of a word to describe him. And if you guys have seen my reviews for this season thus far, you know how tirelessly I've been complaining about Huey not doing much this season until last week's episode. This week's episode doubles down on that. Huey taking charge, doing shit, doing anything at all. He's awesome in this episode. I love Huey. Huey in this episode reminds me of why I fell in love with Huey in the first place in that first season of the show. I love so much of what this episode does for the character of Huey, and what Huey does just for himself, for the boys, for the whole story to move along. I love that he's finally proactive. I also like seeing the Deep and A-Train now a part of the Church of the Collective. Just, I don't know, it's kind of starting to work for me finally, this whole side storyline, because it worked in the beginning, but then it got a little bit boring, but then the Deep himself started to get interesting again, and now this dynamic in here just feels like it's very special and that it should go very interesting places. And look, you guys know my favorite character is Butcher, and Homelander is kind of right there as a very interesting character, a very layered character that feels very, very dangerous and more dangerous as episodes go along. As the season has been unfolding, I thought Homelander has no one to control, and now there's no one to control him, so he's his most dangerous. But now, after getting together with Stormfront, after last week's reveals about Stormfront and who she is and when she's from and who she's been married to and how she got her powers. I think Homelander is now even more dangerous since he is on Stormfront's leash, because I'm calling bullshit on Stormfront. Right here, right now, this is just a theory. This is just a theory. This is just a gut feeling on my end. I think Stormfront feels some kind of twisted version of what love is for Homelander. And Homelander is having his strings pulled. There's an incredibly tense scene in this episode with Homelander and his son, and why he goes back there in the first place. And I can't tell you too much about it, but it's nerve-wracking. I was white-knuckled watching this scene, and now it unfolds. Fuck! And I feel like I say this all the time in these reviews, and I can't explain why, but the final scene in this episode, holy shit, The Boys, for all its faults, and I've had at least one issue on every single episode apart from episode 6. For all its faults, these guys know how to finish an episode. These guys know how to leave you hanging. These guys know how to make you want more and tune in the week after. Because the way these episodes ends, you're always like, yeah, I gotta see what comes after. Even if you're not enjoying it, and I know people out there are not enjoying it, I am very much, and I respect if others out there are not enjoying the season, but man, they know how to leave you hanging and be like, I'm checking out at least the beginning of next week's episode, and then you watch the whole episode. So yeah, a slow starting episode that doesn't do all the things right, that doesn't move its components in the right way, but there are many great scenes with Starlight, Queen Maeve, Black Noir, and others that I cannot talk about, but I can allude to you that they are going to have some very good highlights. Another really great episode of The Boys. I cannot wait for next week's episode, which is going to be the finale, and I cannot wait to bring my review of episode 8, my review of the entire season 2 for you, and also my review of season 1, since I never reviewed it. So let me know all your thoughts on this season so far. How hyped are you for episode 7? What did you think of episode 6? Let me know that in my review of episode 6. I'll leave a link to that at the end of this video. Thanks so much everyone for watching. Once again, you are the best. Stay tuned for many more reviews to come in the near future and more The Boys content, because it's probably my favorite TV show airing right now. So until the next video, stay beautiful, stay geeky, and please do not forget to share, subscribe, and like, because it really helps me and the channel out. But most importantly, above everything else, forever and always, love each other and love the movies.